Marhaba, my name is Hannah Kazim and welcome to another segment of Mawaheb Chats. We are joined here today with Len Amato, who is the president of HBO Films, Josh Welch, who is the president of Film Independent, and Jennifer Kushner, who is the head of artistic development at Film Independent. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. Thank you.
We're also joined here with some AFS participants who are all emerging filmmakers in our industry. I think that's a good topic to start about. What do you guys think of the industry here? How do you think, as an emerging market, we can help train and provide for emerging filmmakers in this industry?
Well, we've been here for a couple of days, and what's really been exciting is that you're building it. And that's a big job, but it's also an exciting job because you need an infrastructure to make movies or to make television shows, but more importantly, you need voices. You know, you need original voices. You need voices that reflect the audience that you want to be speaking with, and so people can get hung up on hardware and lenses and what kind of cameras, but I think the most important thing is the ideas that come out of young filmmakers and reflecting the world that we live in today and reflecting the audience that you're talking to. So that's a very exciting time to be starting a film industry in this country.
And do you have any recommendations, suggestions for emerging filmmakers? How can they make their first film? How to approach it?
Well, I'm a big believer in writing. I mean, you know, when we work on a film, we write many drafts of that film and do a lot of thinking about it. And the most precious time that you have when you're making a film is before you actually start shooting it. Once you get into pre-production, you start shooting it. The train is leaving the station, and you wish you had that time back when you were actually formulating the idea or thinking about the characters or preparing to make the film. So I would say people just need to be true to the things that they really care about, the ideas that they want to express, and just keep honing that idea. And lots of times for a movie, it's good to just tell the story to a friend. And when you tell a story to a friend, you notice where the friend might start getting a little bored or the friend might be getting a little excited. It's the same thing for a movie. And that might tell you, well, maybe this part of the story isn't so strong, so I'm going to say it in a different way or express it in a different way or skip it and I'm going to go to this thing. It's very much the same thing, oral storytelling and making a film.
So how would you define independent cinema, and what are the benefits of being an independent film?
Independent film, to me, there's different ways of defining what it means. To me, the most important one or the most interesting one is really, it's films made by people, not by committees or corporations. It's films that have a distinct author's voice to it. I mean, for us, it's also generally means lower budget, made separately, independently of the studios. But really at the heart of it is the filmmaker's voice. At Film Independent, we support emerging filmmakers all year long, and we're here traveling as part of the Global Media Makers program. And we've been traveling over the last year and a half around kind of the Middle East and North Africa region and meeting young filmmakers in the various countries that we're working in. The cultures are all very different, but when we sit down with a group of young filmmakers, it's immediately, it's fantastic. It's like, oh, these are filmmakers, these are storytellers, these are people that we know, just like in the US. And to have the opportunity to work with emerging talent in these countries is really exciting.
And what would you think is the best way to find emerging talent? I mean, at Imagination, we're always looking for emerging talent. How would you go out to seek them out? Like, what do you think is the best way to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to just add on to one of your first questions, which is about how do you sort of nurture emerging talent. And I think in addition to writing and sort of pursuing your ideas with a certain rigor and passion, there's also, I think, two other really important things, which are the creation of an artistic community and peers that can support each other, share resources and ideas, which is very much what was the foundation of Film Independent, kind of enabling this what at the time was sort of the early days of the independent film movement, to sort of create a sustainable industry within that community. So that's one really important thing, is I think having artists gather together to support each other, to collaborate. And the other really important thing, I think, is mentorship, which is something that Global Media Makers is all about, is providing mentorship to mid-career filmmakers from this region, and connecting them with U.S. industry. And so I think that's a really important thing, is finding your mentors, building a tradition of mentorship if there isn't already one. When you have filmmakers that are more established and whose work you admire, to really, ask them to give back and to teach. And I think that's such an important part of an artistic training and building a career.
And how do you think these emerging filmmakers can seek out these mentors? How would you think that they would? What are your suggestions for approaching mentors?
That's a good question. I mean, I think, I think there's always the possibility of asking them directly. Finding a way to that person and asking them, is there a way that I can meet with you, just talk to you? Going beyond that, can they read your work, provide feedback, or can you shadow them? Can you show up to their set, or intern for them, volunteer, these kinds of things. The other way is through organizations, which is sort of what Josh was mentioning, but if there are organizations like ImageNation, or places that are kind of helping support, universities that are helping support emerging artists and storytellers, hopefully those institutions are a conduit for that, so allowing people to get access to the industry. I think that having a pathway, a certain kind of gatekeeper system where young people can get access, is so important.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about getting the film made. So how would you suggest a person go about making their first film?
Well, just on the mentorship thing, I'm a big believer in letters. So it doesn't take you a lot of time to write a letter. And I know in my own life, letters have worked well. And you just want to know the people that you're writing to. So if you have a passion for film or television, it's a very simple thing you can do, is just look at the stuff that you like, and don't turn it off when the credits go by. Take a look at who's producing it. Take a look at who's making it. Look up those people. Sometimes you'll find out that some of the films or television shows that you admire are made by the same production company as well. That gives you an idea that maybe that's somebody you want to zero in on. Send a query letter. Talk about what you love, what you want to do, what your passion is. Don't be crazy, don't scare them off or anything, don't be a stalker. But write a nice short letter and see if you can meet them. And then in terms of how you get a movie made, I think that technology is changing so fast that a lot of people have the tools at their disposal. There are ways to shoot movies on iPhones. There are ways to cut movies on your computer. There are outlets on the internet. You don't necessarily have to do an expensive film. The studios and the financiers are hungry to find talent. They depend on your generation of young filmmakers. And so they're looking at webisodes, they're looking at internet things. There's a show on HBO right now, Insecure, Issa Rae. She started on the web. People are always looking for new talent, and you have an automatic distribution outlet with the internet. So that's one way. Make a short film, post it yourself, put it up there. As these guys are saying, really the bottom line is trying to find original voices. That's what everybody's looking for, original voices that speak to contemporary audiences, and many times speak to audiences that are underserved. There's big audiences out there. There's lots of diverse audiences out there. They're not always being served with programming that they relate to. If you can kind of look at that and understand that, and then be very specific with your vision, and you have to be passionate about it. It has to be a vocation. You know, it's not really an occupation. It's something that you have to do because you love it, not because there's some reward at the end of the day, because tenacity is really important in the movie business. It's very competitive, but if you're tenacious and you believe in it and you love it, and you love the process, and that's its own reward, then you should do it.
I completely agree with everything Len just said, and especially the idea, it's interesting, people who approach it as a vocation, where they set out, they're telling a story because they're passionate about it, they have to do it. They're not thinking about it as a job or as a step to some, you know, financial success. Ironically, those are the ones I think who have the best chance of actually making it professionally, because people will see their work and it will have that voice, and that's what people respond to. People do not respond to a competently made standard, you know, movie. That's not what anybody is looking for. A filmmaker that we worked with a couple of years ago, Justin Simien, directed the film Dear White People, which again, like Issa, he started out on the web doing shorts on YouTube. That evolved into a feature that turned out beautifully and is now a TV show on Netflix. And that was something where that was just his totally own idiosyncratic voice that he was driven to create, and it turned out very successfully.
And how would you say would be the best way to get their films made? Like after they've made the film, whether it be a short or a feature, what would be the best way to get it out there for people to see?
It really depends on what the film is. In the case of Issa Rae and Justin Simien, they both started out on the web, and both of them built up really sizable followings just on YouTube and on social media. But I think filmmakers at some point do have to think about, what is the audience for this? How am I going to reach an audience? So it's not just like sitting on your hard drive.
There's no rules. Yeah. Every situation is different. Every movie's different, how it comes together, the personalities that get together to make it. Every single thing is different. Every time I make a movie, I'm always surprised by something that I've never experienced before. There's no rules in how you break through. You can kind of come out of nowhere and break through just on the strength of saying something that's unique and original, and hopefully it's well done in the sense that not necessarily that it's has the best production values in the way, but well done in the true sense of storytelling, that it conveys something that evokes emotion and feels authentic and truthful.
I think as a filmmaker, you really have to think about the long road. And, you know, when you're early in your career, you're going to fail. You're going to make films that are not good. And that's part of the process, I think, of becoming a better artist, and not seeing it as, not taking the failure personally, but taking it as part of the process of learning and evolving and developing your craft. And I think a lot of people are very afraid of it's a vulnerable thing to put your work out, and maybe it's not received the way you would hope. But you have to be someone that's willing to learn from those experiences and keep getting better at it.
Yeah, and I think we're joined here with a bunch of AFS students who, some of them are about to make their first shorts. Some of them have made shorts before, and maybe this is their second or third. Just wanted to see if anyone had any questions for our guests today. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Samia. Thanks for the talk. My question for you is, I see that the challenge for me as a young filmmaker in the Middle East, somebody who's trying to establish herself as a filmmaker, is that we're met with a number of challenges, and it's not just like one challenge, which is like, let's say, the funding, or not having the market, or not having the audience. I feel like in other parts of the world, there's already like an established business model for filmmaking. It exists, and there are different ways to get into the industry. And so my question for you is, what do you recommend? I mean, it could be somebody that's already tried to do their first short or do their first feature, and it hasn't really gone anywhere. When do you know that you are supposed to, stop trying or do something else? Or, I mean, what is, because I'm sure you meet so many different people every day in different parts of the world. So what is your advice? What's your recommendation?
The good thing about making a movie or writing a script is that it doesn't really recognize national boundaries. There's a whole world out there. And again, even if it might be specific to your world and to your part of the world, there still is an audience outside of your immediate universe that could relate to it. So I'm a big believer in letting the work do the talking. So whether it's a short film that travels or a script that travels or even a short script that can travel. Yes, you're facing a lot of challenges, and maybe you have more challenges than filmmakers in other parts of the world, but the field is level in terms of the work that's out there, right? So I would trust that, and nobody can answer when you think you should stop. That's why I was talking about tenacity. Well, would you be relieved if you stop doing it? Maybe that's a good measure of stopping, right? In other words, like, okay, I did that, I'm done with that, thank God that's over. But if you don't feel that way and you still have a hunger, then maybe you never stop. You have to figure out a way to make a living. And it's hard. I spent a long time working a job for money and doing my art. And when you're young and you're strong, that's good. But at a certain point, it's kind of like having 2 full-time jobs all the time. So, but if you don't burn out on it and it still feeds you somehow, I mean, feeds you intellectually and spiritually doing your art, then why stop?
When you were listing the various challenges that you face here, my first reaction was they all sound completely familiar to me and are faced by any emerging filmmaker I know. But I also thought, to the extent that you, and I don't know if this is the case, but to the extent that you don't feel a broader community of support here or a kind of established industry that you can work within, I would go back to what Jennifer was saying. That's really how Film Independent came about as an organization. It's a very open, collaborative group of people who came together to support each other when there was no system in place to support in the early days of independent film. And in traveling for global media makers, one of my main takeaways from every country I've been to is that people really need to start something like a nonprofit, not a production company, not a financier, but an organization that will just provide you some structure for support and community. And I think once you have that in place, it's not going to make any of those challenges go away, but it'll provide you sort of a resting place and a place of emotional support, if nothing else, which I think can help with that long slog.
So I am one of the filmmakers starting in AFS, and I was lucky enough to have a degree in screenwriting that kind of boxed us into what kind of genre we had to pick or what kind of feature TV. So my question is, like, right now we have Alison Schroeder, who did Hidden Figures, but if you look past in her IMDb credits, she has a lot of romantic comedies, and then she wrote this like epic biographical drama that has got her a lot of acclaim. Evan Doherty, he did Snow White and the Huntsman, but he knew that before he got to his baby, he had to start with something more manageable, and he went with the small thriller Killing Season. So my question is that with what Film Independent does for emerging filmmakers, do you think it's advisable to go to that stepping stone that will get you a foot in and then do what you truly love?
In general, you can probably answer this better, but I think at Film Independent, when people come to us with projects, we don't want their industry stepping stone script. We want the script that they're passionate about. Come in with something that really speaks to who you are as a human being, as an artist, something that you're really passionate about, not something that will get you in the door where then later you can do your passion project.
I would say both are important. Take the opportunities to develop your craft in whatever way you can and get experience, but not at the sacrifice of your own ideas if that's what you want to pursue, is something original.
Is there any particular genre that you're looking at? Or what is the process to reach to you so that our films which we dream of can be made?
No, we're not looking at a particular genre. For Global Media Makers specifically, it's a program that's by nomination. So we work with a number of organizations throughout the region as well as the embassies. And filmmakers are nominated to apply for the program. And you have to apply with a project. So we're looking at writers, directors, producers, documentary filmmakers in both features, television, and new media. We are looking for films that have local relevance, that have that are dealing with topical issues that are affecting each individual or their communities. We'd love to see something that's playing with genre, but really ultimately it comes down to what is it really about and why is it important to that filmmaker to tell that story. And then looking at their past work and what it is that they're hoping to accomplish by doing this program. So we're sort of looking at, the whole kind of vision of this person as well as the project. Last year we supported 14 filmmakers from 5 countries. There was a documentary series, a short documentary series called Faces of Arabia that focused on portraits of change makers in the Middle East. We had a sort of very character-driven drama by 2 Moroccan women about a mother's struggle to keep custody of her daughter. A whole range of stories. That's been one of the most exciting things for us about this program is hearing your stories. And I think it's an important time in the world for you guys to tell your stories. And it's exciting to see the range of voices and ideas that are coming from you. So it's been a real pleasure for us.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.